Hello, my loves, and welcome to the It's Karmic podcast with me, your host, Vika Bradford. Today, I have one of my most favorite people in the whole world, my first astrology mentor, Daphna Romanoff, with me here. Welcome, Daphna.
Hi, thank you. So happy to be back.
So happy to have you here. If you guys haven't listened to the episode with Daphna, oh my goodness, that was a while ago, like sometime last year, I think, or maybe even 2020. But we talk about Daphna's version of astrology, vision of astrology, shamanic astrology, the whole jam of her like magic. So go listen to that. But Daphna, like I'm just so excited to have you back on the podcast with me.
Thank you. And it feels so great. And like we're in such different places, and yet so much is the same and always
Yeah.
will be.
Oh my gosh, I know.
It's difficult to like just, keep meeting up and connecting and doing this. So thank you.
I agree. And like for you guys listening, Daphna and I started working together a while ago. I think it was 2019. And it was like an instant past life connection. Like we've been doing this for a long time together.
Instant familiarity.
Yeah. So, okay, you guys are in for a treat today because we are going into one of my very favorite topics. And I know it's one of Daphna's favorite topics too, which is the South Node. So, Daphna, do you want to start us off with the juicy goods?
Yes. So the truth is that like I the more I've practiced astrology and for myself with clients just for fun, whatever, I like came to the realization that I really truly believe that the nodes are like the whole purpose. So it's exciting because as I feel collectively we're like becoming more reconnected to astrology, we're reclaiming it, it's becoming a lot more taken seriously and really respected and appreciated. And that means we're able to go deeper with it. We're going past just sun signs, past the big three. It's exciting to think about how getting deeper into like the nodes for just like in a general way is like, wow, like you can really understand so much more about where you're coming from, where you're going, what the purpose all is. And something that came through for me, which I started to teach as well, as everything in your chart is really there to kind of uplift and support the north node, but the south node is such an amazing awareness for us to have that helps us to understand really our subconscious expectations of reality, I think. But also what are those really natural skills and gifts and just the most easiest things that come to us without trying, that we can leverage, that actually, because the nodes are always directly opposite to each other. And we talk a lot about the axes of energy. They're two sides of the same coin, right? So there's just this natural affinity between those energies, and it does support the north node, but it does require us to be intentional about it. And so I think mastering a appreciation and like a healthy relationship to your south node, I think is like such a power move. And for me, I can't wait to get into it and hear about yours, but I just love it because it's sometimes like funny. It's so funny how it shows up. And once you start to become aware of it, you can really see where you are kind of holding on to like a very comfortable part of yourself or aspects of yourself or way of being, way of seeing things. But you're really here to move past from. So it's very fun, I think, to learn about it, and also very, very liberating and healing at the same time.
Yeah, 100% liberating and healing. Like that's like the perfect little box of words to put for when you start to work with your South Node. And when you're saying like you truly believe they are like the purpose, the destiny, it confirms every time I read a chart, every time I tap into anything. And then when I, like, you guys know listening, I'm obsessed with transits. So when I am tapping into the collective and the shifts we're having, and then, you know, those shifts in someone's chart, I truly believe they're some of the most impactful points, no matter if it's a transit or if it's your personal natal nodes or your progress nodes. I don't care what it is. The nodes have such a power. There's nothing
Absolutely.
like it. Yeah.
You're so right. I actually started to become very aware of that when I moved onto my North Node line, which we'll talk about in our other episode. But I started actually tracking transits to my nodes, and I was like, whoa. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's like another really powerful tool that I'm excited for people to take and really, integrate into their practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I appreciate that I learned from you first and like the beginning of my journey was you were very adamant about not hating the South Node. And there's a lot of astrology out there that is like anti-South Node. It's like, this is the worst placement ever. We must move away from it. It's terrible. It's your low self. It's your ego. It's your this, it's your that. There's a lot of negative focus. And you, when we started like studying together really deeply, even before I started studying with you, and I was just, learning business, branding my business with you and stuff, like you were still like, the South Node is a gift. It's mastery. And I took that piece, and that was one of the things that made me know I needed to do karmic astrology and past life focus, because I was like, when I looked at mine, I was like, oh, there's some low octaves here for sure, like for sure. But the mastery of it, why would we ever get rid of a gift?
Yeah.
You just throw it away. Like the universe is like, here's a beautiful gift of mastery of many lives, but like just throw it in the garbage.
You're so right. And thank you for bringing that up too, because, it just touches on that really important, I guess, concept or whatever, that like we have to have such discernment when learning astrology, because, there's been certain things that have been put out there to intentionally corrupt it, and to, not allow it to like really be its true wholeness. I'm speaking very vaguely. I've learned things that like, there's been certain I don't know how much truth there is to it, but like it really resonated learning that like the church, had like sent out people to actually like teach it falsely, just so that people were still able to learn it and still practice it, but like not in its full truth. I learned about that around like the Placidus house system. And so I wouldn't be surprised, if there was like some seed planted around that, and then, it's like that little thing, that little like off teaching that can like kind of take away from so much of it. But I love that you brought that up, because I think it's just that discernment and really always coming back to like your heart with it. Like, I really don't believe there's anything bad in any of our charts, and that's because it's just energy, right? So there's like different ways of expressing all these energies. Some may be healthier, some may be not as healthy, but it doesn't make it good or bad. And I
Yeah.
just think that that's always just such a really good thing to just always come back to and remind ourselves, because, you may want to go, Google or find a book, and like, if it doesn't sit right, if it doesn't like really resonate on that heart level of like your, just what you believe about like life and the universe, then like leave it. It doesn't mean it's true. And for sure, I can't wait to talk about just the gifts of our South nodes and how we've both, been able to receive from them. Like you said, it's given you direction on like the work you're here to do, and it makes your work easy because it's just so natural for you.
Yeah,
So I love
100%. Yeah. And I love what you said there. Like, if it doesn't resonate on something that it just popped into my head here, things that don't resonate with me, that may resonate with some of the listeners, is I do not vibe with malefics. I don't vibe with benefics. I do believe, yes, there is a beautiful energy of Venus and Jupiter, but I do not believe that Saturn and Mars are
Right.
bad planets or bad. Like, I don't believe Scorpio is a bad sign. I just, that's never vibed with me. And that's a traditional astrology view. I just don't think so. I think they have, even malefic or like hard aspects. I don't call them hard aspects. I call them like challenging aspects in the sense that they invoke us to change. So I don't think, like you said, nothing's bad. It is an invitation of growth. And often the hard planets or hard aspects are the biggest growth planets, right?
I love it. Yeah. And like when you look at the context of the history of like where those ideas, like it's just like anything else, it's a reflection of where humanity's consciousness was at. And I think we're here to evolve it, and to update it and be like, okay.
100%.
So
Yeah.
I love it. I love that.
Love it. Okay. This is
Here.
so juicy. So, okay, we're prefacing this whole conversation with, if anyone listening is in the mind of the South Node is a bad thing, let's leave that behind today. Open your mind, expand your mind to some new information that if it doesn't resonate, hey, leave it at the door. But I believe it will, because you're inviting yourself into the conversation today. So Daphna, tell us, I want to know first, like, the learning around where you were living out of alignment with your South Node.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, I guess I'll share what my
Yes.
placement is. So it's Scorpio, my South Node Scorpio in the 5th house. Which means, of course, you'll always know it's the direct opposite of your North. So my North Node's Taurus in the 11th. And I can't pinpoint a specific time of when I really started to become very aware. However, as my life, I think it was definitely later on, like more like in my like later 20s, 30s, probably like after having my kids, like I just started to do a lot of healing work on myself around like attachment in relationships. I went through some really crazy like relationships in my life. I started to recognize certain patterns that were just like very obvious. Like, so I had this very distinct moment, actually, now that I think about it, and it was actually here in Sedona, where I was like, oh my God, like I can very clearly see how I have always, in every relationship I've been in, like kind of shown up in the exact same way, had the same fears, had all the same, almost like it's like a script, different person, different partner, but exact same outcome. And it's like, once you see it, it's so obvious. But before that, it's kind of like living beneath the veil. Like, it's not obvious. And you really feel confused. You feel a lot of suffering. This can go for anything, where, you have certain patterns and wounds. But like for me, I think it was a lot to do with, you know, that attachment piece. Like we know Scorpio and Taurus are very much about attachment and security and feeling safe. And it's funny because I think a big part of it was like I started to recognize something that I was very proud of in myself for a long time, which was like I love investigations. Like I wanted to be a forensic science what was it, psychiatrist or something, like in high school. Like I literally almost applied to be like to study at like the it's called the John Jay School of like forensics or whatever. It was like a total serious consideration for me. My grandma wanted to do that too, and we were very close. She was a Gemini as well. So like I was like so proud of my suspiciousness, which showed up in my relationships. I was always like hyper suspicious. I had such a hard time trusting. I was always like investigating. My boyfriends were like, are you psychic or psycho? Like, that meme, psychic or psycho or psycho or psychic. And I was always like, I would just pick up on things that like kind of, they were right a lot of the times, but it was like almost like, it was like I was looking for trouble, and I remember noticing how like when I was feeling down, or when I was just not even feeling down, just my go-to to relax would be to watch like the most intense like cult documentaries about like cults and mysteries and like things that like are not relaxing, but that's like my happy place. And I was like, that's just so interesting. And yet I would go sometimes too far down the rabbit hole. And I was always like looking into like the conspiracies. And I got to a point where I was like, I don't even know if this is healthy for me anymore, and I'll always have an appreciation, but I can feel sometimes this pull to like activate that Scorpio and like just go into like full-fledged, like suspicious, like conspiracy, like occult mode. And again, I recognize that was almost like kind of like a coping thing for me, and it felt very safe and comfortable, but at the same time it was creating a lot of just not positive things in my life too, for myself mostly, and that would carry over into relationships. So I know that's a lot.
But it's good. It's a great example.
It's fascinating. Thank you. And it's very interesting when you do have like let's say Scorpio specifically, because if anybody listening has that, or an 8th house, or any connection with like Pluto and their south node, you'll read in the astrological literature or whatever that like that is it's a toughie to come in with, because you do come from a background of like of a lot of pain, of a lot of just of a difficult experience, and I registered that, and I was like, okay, I am going through life expecting to be lied to be just all in that, and that's just not what I'm here for now.
Yeah. I love this because I don't remember what I was reading recently, what book it was. I'm always reading like 500 books at once. It's a problem. Gemini, Mars issues. I know, but I was reading something that was talking about Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio being the crisis energies.
100%.
The crisis energies. Okay. And I was like, wow. And then, Scorpio is kind of like the pinnacle of the crisis. And that's it, right? It's so related to anybody I read for that has a Scorpio south node, a Scorpio moon, like, these energies has come from these lives of like, I call it the witch wound, or we can call it like the ostracized wound, or, there's pain that has come over from that signature.
And you know what? It was so liberating to realize that thank you for bringing that word, because it was that I was like, why I am addicted to this crisis, and like, I realized also I am very good at handling crises.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not one that whenever there was like something happened, I was like, I felt so in charge in that energy, really comfortable in it. But I was like, that's so weird. Like, I was like, what is that? And I didn't realize that I was kind of sort of seeking that out, or creating it in little ways, just to feel safe, just to feel comfortable, because it's kind of like the south node to me is like the moon on steroids. Like, it's
exactly what I think.
Our comfort and but it's like, it's more than that. It's the terrain that we are most comfortable in.
Yeah. And think about your terrain, your comfort terrain being crisis,
Right.
right? So that's crazy to think about.
I want to say one thing, just not to forget, but like somebody may be listening and have that as their north node. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I want to say that, again, there's no good or bad in this. I'll get into the good of the Scorpio South Node, but like, what if it's your North Node, right? That is what you're here for, but it doesn't necessarily have to be painful.
No, it doesn't have to be crisis.
Yeah, right. And like,
That's the low.
yes, exactly. And so a big part of it is kind of like that conscious alchemization of the energy and recognizing like this is about your personal growth journey. So like if you're coming from that energy, that means that's that's the evolutionary direction you're going in. But if you're headed toward that energy, then you're actually evolving that energy forward. So I just want to mention that because I don't want to, throw shade
No scaring, no
or
scaring anyone.
like that. In
We
fact,
love Scorpios here.
yeah, and my partner has his North Node in Scorpio. We're exact opposite.
Okay.
So it's amazing
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. That's a whole
Okay,
nother.
I love that. I love that. We're gonna do, guys, for you listening, we have a sister episode coming on Daphna's podcast all about the North Node. And so you're gonna see like where that swap happens. So it's gonna be so juicy to understand the highs and the lows. And right now, talking about the lows, it's important to claim our lows, but also know that every sign has a high octave, low octave, and we get to choose which one we operate in.
Yes, I love that. And so Vika, what's your South Node kind of revelation?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, my South Node, and this year, I'm leaning into my whole signs chart because as most of my listeners know, and my birth time was off by 30 minutes. So I always thought, that 30 minutes put my, in whole signs, put my South Node in the 10th house. Now I'm leaning this year into my whole signs, it's moved into the 11th house this year. So I'm leaning into this. So that would make my Leo South Node in the 11th house conjunct my moon, my midheaven, and my Jupiter, and a whole bunch of asteroids. So guys, I got all the Leo energy. So my South Node was like an absolute revelation when I first started learning about it. Some of the listeners will know when I first learned about it, an ex of mine in like 2013 or 14 gave me a book called Astrology for the Soul. If you haven't read it, oh my God, I love this book so much. And he was like, he was turned to this chapter, this is you. And I read this damn book, sitting there like, who the hell has been following me around for, I guess at that point, 23, 24 years of my life, and just documenting everything that's ever happened to me that hurt like hell. Like, man, it was like reading all my pain points, just one after the other. And I remember just feeling so seen for the first time in my life, where I was just grounded into my wounds in like a really open and expansive way, where I was just like, damn, that's why. So with my South Node, whether you put it in the 10th house in Placidus or you put it in the 11th house in whole signs, was such a big journey around my need for approval from external sources. My whole life, like I wanted to be a singer from the age of being able to speak. Basically, I was obsessed with Leanne Rimes. And I remember looking at my mom, she tells the story constantly. I was like 4 years old and I'm watching Leanne Rimes on the TV. And they were saying, no, I must've been 6, because Leanne Rimes was like, yeah, I started singing lessons at 4 years old. And I looked at my mom apparently, and I was like, I'm late. I'm late and it's your fault. Oh she was like, what? I was like, I am 2 years behind and it is your fault, woman. So I wanted to be a singer.
A super random, just Leanne Rimes. It's so funny because she she was following me. I don't know if she still does, but it was like the funniest thing because I used to like get these notifications that Leanne Rhymes like my post, and I was just like, that's so random. And I
So
used to like
random.
tell my sister all the time, and I'm just like, that's so funny.
I love that so much because
Maybe
Leanne
not-
rhymes.
right? Like, what are the chances?
What are the chances? I could see her vibing with
She
astrology.
appreciates the astrology.
100%. So with Leanne Rhymes, I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a songwriter. I was in musicals. I was in Broadway. I was always in drama camp. Any play I could get my fingers on, like I was in it. I was in the choir. I was in all those things, but I was always second best, never the lead, always second best my whole life. And I was always chasing that like spotlight, right? I always wanted to be seen as the greatest. Now, one thing I'll say about my South Node as well is I was never willing to put in the work that the lead was doing. I just wanted to be seen as being great in my pure laziness. My
Wow.
pure Leo, like I'm just great as I am. I'm not going to study or I'm not going to do vocal coaching. Like, who do you think you
I
are?
support that. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
was like, I'm already so good. You guys should just see it. Right. So I was always second best. I was always looking for external validation. I wanted to be famous. And, I don't even know if there was like a truth of why I wanted to, other than that astrological feeling of like, I've done this before. And when I tap into my past lives, my my comfort zone, I know one of my past lives, I was, a very prominent king or like Tsar, we'll use the Russian term. I know that past life I've had very, 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 very intense, regressions into that life. I can feel since I was a kid, like those princess vibes. Everyone's called me a princess my whole life. My husband still calls me a princess. Like he calls me a queen too. But so these energies were always around and I was always suffering from my need to be seen and the feeling like I wasn't seen as great as everyone
That
else.
was like your story.
It was so intense, like the validation, the seeking of others, never trusting myself to just be who I was. I would like, become something else to be seen as great. Definitely like the laziness came through. My Leo energy, she does like to lounge. But there was so much pain around not being great and wanting to be great so badly. And I was not humble. Like, let's just say I was not humble about this. And so when I read that damn book, I learned my North Node. Everything was like, I've been chasing the wrong, like, snake. I don't even know if that's a good analogy, but like the wrong thing. I've been chasing the opposite. Yes, the snake is perfect actually, because the
Yes.
Tutu and
Yes.
Rahu, is that what it's called?
The dragon's head and the dragon's tail. Yeah.
Yes, I was chasing the wrong end of the dragon.
Oh my God. That
And
is
it was pain. It was so painful, right?
yes.
And in the 11th house or the 10th house, that's people seeing me, right? Let's like my legacy or it was always in the community, always. Yeah. And then leaning into like, I need to stop chasing the outside and start, living from those high Leo octaves, which we'll talk about, changed absolutely everything. Now I radiate. Everyone knows I radiate Leo.
Yeah.
And I love it. And it's funny too, because my whole life as a Virgo sun and Virgo, I do have Virgo stellium, but I'd always be like, I feel like a Leo.
Yeah.
My whole life. I feel like a Leo.
Right? See, that's the thing is like, you'll actually resonate so much with your South Node energy.
So much.
And you'll connect well with those with it too.
Oh yeah.
Depending on how you're expressing it and all that, but that is a really good point.
Yeah.
It's a great point. And it's like a theme in life, right? Would you say it's more of like an arching theme?
Yeah, it's part of my theme too. And if we think about the swap of mine, I've got the Leo, Aquarius, Leo. So like I'm doing my North Node in the Leo house and my South Node in the Aquarius house. So it's like, I can't ignore either of them.
And I think when we see that, the double up of the energies, it's like just a very clear sort of, okay, like this is energy we're working with. It's no way around it. So it's a very potent form of this this alchemization that's going on. So I love that. And I guess we could say just, from both of ours, like, you know, the pain that we both felt, and that maybe, anyone listening can kind of like resonate with, like, is like a really clear indicator of, sort of living under your south node, under the veil of your south node, if we want to say it, is
Yeah.
pain and recurring and very pattern like you were saying, is the same things,
Same
just
thing.
different situations. For me too, as you were speaking as well, I realized, like, for me, betrayal was like the theme. For me, for you, it was like maybe failure, or like not being
Oh yeah.
great enough. For me, it was like betrayal. Like, and you mentioned the regressions, which I think are so freaking awesome. But like my regression that I did, and we both have the fifth house um piece, so like, and the Leo piece. But for me, I did a regression it was after it was, I don't know how many years ago, but I was still living in New York. I remember doing this regression, and I saw myself being beheaded by my husband, and I was a queen, he was a king. Similar thing, my mom always, in real life, my mom always told me that she was the descendant of King David, through her mother's side, because there was like a couple of family names that like they literally were able to link back. So I also grew up hearing that, and like, and these little things, I'm mentioning it because it's like you can pick up on these clues from your childhood, from your, what was your narrative? What were the stories? What were the nicknames? What were the things in your life? Because those are important clues, and they shape who we are. There's a reason for that. And again, I think like we both had that experience where we were like, okay, like, I'm coming from that energy, and what is it asking me now? Like, how am I supposed to channel it now? Because I'm clearly not royalty in this one, you know but there's a reason for that. And how do I like own it in a way that that serves me, rather than makes me feel like, you know not good about myself, or whatever it may be. So
Yeah.
I just
Oh my
love that you
gosh.
that.
You're giving me so many
That's
breakthroughs too around just like the 11th house for a second, because this is a new exploration for me. Even though Aquarius is my north node, it's like how this is current, how I really believe like society's fucked. Like, I'm like, we're fucked, guys. And I'm like, are we really doing this again? And this rebellious nature I've always had in me. I was always in the principal's office. I was getting suspended constantly because I have issues with authority. Leo is authority, Aquarius is authority, right? It's the different authorities, but I have issues with authority. I was always in trouble, always like, rebelling against the system, always the revolutionary. And
punk
I
rocker.
was a punk rock. I was goth. I was punk. I was all of it. I was at one point, I was really into Insane Clown Posse too. So there was like the juggalette thing. Okay. So I was that, like, anything
They were a little extreme for me, but I was
oh my God. I listen. Sometimes I've listened recently and I'm like, wow, like I was right into this, and it is insane and like violent and
right.
wow. But like, I was always there for
Right.
anything that was out of the norm. And I'm seeing it now even more play up, like where I'm like, yeah, if it was out of the norm, I was going there intentionally to disrupt. Very Uranus of me. Like, so I'm making so many downloads right now.
It literally, yeah, like you can see those little details, but like that is like who you were, right? That was like it affected the choices that you made, and everything. And like, but it's just fascinating because like, to not to like put judgment on it for yourself or anything, but it's like, was that healthy? Was that coming from, from like my truth, or,
Never. It was always to receive some sort of external, whether it was validation or external response.
Right. And like to kind of feed or sustain that feeling of the South Node, where
Yeah.
it's like addiction almost,
The
like,
drama.
yeah. Yeah.
The trauma. Okay, this is friggin' fascinating, guys. So I hope you guys listening are thinking about your South Node for a second here and just like kind of wondering and examining. And Daphne and I got something juicy coming up our sleeves here to do some magic with you guys. But let's talk about like the highs that you've learned from being a Scorpio South Node fifth house.
Yes. Okay. So um there's a lot, once I was able to really kind of make peace, like we're saying, and recognize how, wow, this is really very obviously, what I've been kind of sustaining over time, and how it wasn't really serving or whatever. Only then was I able to really start to receive the gifts and to leverage the gifts in a way that actually do serve me. So I think that that's just like an interesting thing to like look at, like how I think it is a little like a bit of a sequence in that sense, like um and I just realized, okay, like recreating these scenarios, right, of the crisis, right? So it's like this question of like, what am I here for, right? Like, am I here for the chaos and the drama? And I had to really decide, like, no, and really kind of put that to rest and just be like, thank you. Like, I don't want that anymore. And then I really started to especially within the context of like my work, I think what it really lent itself, that was like the easiest place for me to kind of just start to lean more into the higher octaves of Scorpio energy. And it was very intentional. I remember like literally like writing this, journaling on it, and being like, what are these gifts, um because it does have a different quality than, let's say, like the other gifts that we have. And it takes some digging, it takes some alchemy, it takes some intention, right? Where like, as in, like, for example, if I was to talk about like my sun gifts, like that just kind of happens, like it just shines, and it's like I don't really have to try. um I feel like the South Node gifts are more, and maybe it's because for me, like Scorpio was like, it's just like a little bit, it is alchemy, right? So it's like, not to say that Scorpio doesn't have amazing gifts. It was just my experience of it, but I feel like the quality is a little different, and maybe you resonate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I just started to really notice like how my investigative skills, right? Like those things, my ability to like go really, really deep, and to like not be afraid of darkness, right? Like I remember very specifically having a major breakthrough around, I used to have these dreams all throughout my childhood. I think I must have told you about this, but I had these really scary nightmares for all my whole, and they were intensifying. um and they were like, basically it was always the same dream. It was like this demon, these demons of some sort. It was always one, and it was like a very, very scary figure that was like terrifying, like it, sort of zombie-ish, but like more like just really scary, trying to break through a door, and I was on the other side of the door, and I had to keep the door closed. And then I would usually in the dream have to say like some kind of prayers and incantations, and like yell and scream, and like, and then either like keep them behind the door, or they would then go to like the light. I don't know, it was so intense. And actually I read in a book somewhere that like, if you don't want those dreams anymore, like you can just simply ask for them to stop. And I did, and they actually stopped. And I didn't really have them. Every now and then I'll have one, but like it was, but I remember like grappling with that. And I was like, realized that that probably had something to do with like my Scorpio South node, because it felt very much like underworld, like dealing with these sort of very dark energies and then like transmuting it and stuff like that. And that was like a huge part of my life. Like it wasn't just like I had these dreams, like I would wake up like terrified. I didn't really talk about it to anybody because I was just, a teenager living my life. And it was just something I was just, that I thought was like, just not normal, but like just something I lived with, but it did affect me. And so I was like, what the hell? Like, why am I like, it's just not fun. I don't like it. It's scary. But once it clicked, I was like, okay, maybe part of my South Node gift is like the ability to like, connect with souls that are like needing to, like be escorted to like wherever they're going. And it was like a very deep thing. And I started to explore, the concept of like a psychopomp, which is that, and shamanism. And so that did lead me to the shamanic piece of astrology. And it did lead me into like doing deeper levels of like energy work, and just sort of having like more than anything, I don't necessarily want to work in those realms, and I don't feel that that's like truly my calling, but it's more like this piece I felt, and this almost like sense of like, wow, okay, like an appreciation that that's something that I can do and be with and not be scared and not like, run from, even though I was scared, but I still was doing it all the time. But like, just to be able to access that and like go about my life, and so again, I don't deal in those things, and I don't feel that it's part of my work now as much, but it's really allowed me to have like this kind of appreciation that I could, and like I think that goes into like some confidence and something inside of me that feels like I have like a medicine that like when needed or if needed I can like draw upon. So that to me is like a big part of it, like for the Scorpio. Also I'm totally leaning into this more now. This is total like if I feel like if we accomplish our North Node mission, like we're pretty much like, you know, we've completed what we need to do here. So we're all still working on this all the time. As long as you're living on this plane, you're working on it. But I also have Saturn in my fifth. So there's like this hard energy there for me around like being more spontaneous, letting things be more fun, and I'm learning now more like how to bring that fifth house, in and there's like a mastery piece that I'm getting really curious about. Like, what is it? Is it like, I don't know. Is it dance? Is it art? Something is starting to really brew for me around like something in the fifth house that is going to be like really, really powerful for me. This is just very new. Um, so we'll see. I've always felt like I wanted to go do acting classes. Since moving to Sedona, I've had like more opportunities to be involved in like music and entertainment stuff. We'll talk about that. But yeah, I think it's just this feeling of like in my work, I can hold space for the really deep, dark stuff and not have to necessarily go into it for myself anymore, unless like I really feel like I need to, but just to hold the space for it and to help others like navigate that realm.
I love that so much.
Scorpio. Yeah.
Scorpio, it's deep. It's deep, it's messy, but it's beautiful.
So messy.
So messy. And like, I love what you said. The psychopomp energy is one of my favorite energies. And almost everyone I work with, I would say 90% of the souls I work
Mhm.
with have what I call is like a psychopomp energy, which is either Pluto, Mercury aspects, Mercury in the eighth house, or a Scorpio, Pluto. Scorpio, Mercury. There's some other ones too that link to, but like I feel like 90% of my clients have this like psychopomp energy and the ability to get information from the underworld, right? And
Mhm.
yours in the fifth house is just so, it's like a creative force, but Saturn being there too. Oh my goodness, there's so much
Yeah,
work there.
there is.
There is.
And like I just also, the healing piece as well, like with any of the water signs. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I know that like I'm meant to channel that into like healing. And I think it's like for of myself, like a
Mhm.
lot, and like my kids,
Mm,
I'm just leaning more and more into that, like,
I love it.
and like doing my herbs. And so that's my take, on really elevating the south node energy. And
Wow. I'm sure there's so many. I know I have a ton of people listening that have their Scorpio South Node, and
like,
like you guys are
I,
all in
I
your
love
return
to
right
hear,
now.
yeah, like please, I wish there was like comment, if there's a way to comment, like I want to hear like what are you doing with your Scorpios?
Yeah, yeah. If you're listening or watching on
Yeah,
YouTube, please comment like what's going on with your literal nodal return right now. So not
exactly.
surprised that you're having all that stuff come up.
So, and it's like a new chapter of it, like what are we doing with this energy now, and um it's just it's really fascinating, you can really read energies, and there's such a fine line, between how you're going to use that energy. And um
Yeah. Mm, I love it. Okay, so that is like just a beautiful example of how, and like it's going to be different for all of us, right?
Different.
But just an example of how we can like elevate that energy and realize it is a mastery and it is something to bring along with you, and you can like dive into it when you need it, and yeah, and not over nurture it, but nurture it in a healthy way.
Yeah, totally.
Mm.
So how about you? What's been your, I'm really curious, like how, well, yeah, just tell me everything.
Okay, so for me, with learning this, it was like a big journey of understanding what is like the high of Leo. What does like a high Leo look like? And because it's also my moon, midheaven, and Jupiter, I was like, okay, shit. Like, I can't hide this. Like, I literally wear my heart on my sleeve. Okay, moon and like Leo is the heart. Like, I literally like wear my heart on my sleeve. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. There's no like I'm feeling it, they're picking it up. So I had to come to terms with that. That was huge. And like the South Node again, like I had to be like, okay, everyone's seeing this. Okay. So I'm on a little bit of display in this life, which is super interesting because a lot of me wants to hermit. Okay, feel my Virgo energy. And like in human design, I'm a 6-2 manifester. So like I've got big hermit vibes. But like there's a lot of me on display. And so I had to
I
think about
love that. I love that like juxtaposition with you. I just love it.
the Virgo and Leo, they're
It's
constantly
what
in a
makes you
battle.
Vika. Like it's like, and it's I know that it's a battle, but it's like I love that about you. Like
Thank
it's
you.
so I just feel like I see how you can be more introverted, but then also like you're, and I love it because you get both.
Thank you. I'm so glad because like it's not the easiest thing in the world, but I'm glad I can kind of bring it into like a beautiful place because they are always fighting it out.
Mm.
So when I really leaned into how much I over leaned into my Leo shadow and woke up to that, and I was like, okay, I see where I operate from like a very, very like low Leo energy, especially when I get angry. And when I feel like my emotions have been violated. Like I
Mm.
was reading in one of my favorite author, you introduced me to her, Judy Hall. So the Hades Moon. I think it was the book Karmic Connections or Karmic Journey. I don't know, one of her books. And she spoke about like the Leo South Node being very, very very much linked to emotional manipulation. And I was like, oh boy, that's been one for me. And then there was something else I read it's called the Shamanic Astrology Handbook. I don't know if you've read it. I think maybe it was you that suggested it years ago. And he was talking about Jupiter specifically, but he mentioned Leo and the job of Jupiter and Leo being radical self-love. Those words literally now live in my brain rent free.
Yeah.
Radical self-love. And I was like, okay. So that is like my guidepost, I guess, for knowing if I'm in my mastery or not. Knowing that I did bring my South Node in with my midheaven. So it is part of my work here. So when I'm reading all these things being like your South Node, like we're getting rid of it, I'm like, but that's part of my work here. It's like all this lives of mastery around radical self-love and confidence and power and authority, and how I'm supposed to do that for my people in this world. And it's part of my legacy, right? I'm meant to shine, but I also have to be aware of those lows. So really like using that as my guidepost to say, okay, am I operating from my heart? Am I operating from love? Am I operating from not making I'm always making myself shine. That's part of my work, but like, am I making others shine? Right. Especially if you move it into the 11th house, am I helping the collective shine brighter? And I was reading actually something the other day that spoke so deeply to me about Leo. It was in the book. I don't have it around here. It's like Astrology, Karma, and Transformation, I think, by Stephen Ario, yeah, something like that. And he was talking about this one section of Leo in the sun being all about becoming something. And I was like, oh, like it hit me right in the heart. And I was like, it is about becoming something. The sun wants to become something. Leo wants to become something. And he was talking about how like a Leo will never stop. They have to become what they set out to become, whether it's for a moment, in a role, or it's like, whatever it is, I have to become. Yeah. So when I'm like leaning into the highest of mine, I'm like, I am becoming something. It is part of my sacred work to become something. And then of course I funnel that through to my Aquarius energy. But the high of me is, am I leading from the heart? Am I becoming what I came here to become? And am I operating from like my internal sacred authority? And adding to that, am I seeking external validation? Because when I question that, right? I had a day yesterday where I wanted to blow my business up. This happens all the time, guys. It's just part of my signature. It's fine. Wanted to blow it up. And my husband said something to me. What did he say? He said, why do you want to blow your business up today? I'm like, because I didn't make any money today. I said, no, I didn't get any recognition today. And he looked at me and he goes, oh, he's like, so this is about your recognition. And I looked at him and I was like, oh, I just saw me South Node so hard right there. And I linked myself to, wow, I have bad days when I don't feel like I got the praise from the external source that I'm succeeding. So when I come back to, and he grounded me in that moment, I was like, good job. Like, wow. And I looked at it and I was like, you're fine.
Yes.
You're fine. Are you doing your sacred work? Yes. Am I loving and operating from my heart? Yes. Am I lifting my people up and inspiring them and helping them to be the greatest version of themselves? Yes. Okay, we're good. We're in the high of our South Node. We can move forward. And that's where I found myself.
That's beautiful. What an amazing, like, embodiment of this, and just showing, like, really good example of showing how in the moment you can catch yourself kind of getting sucked into that power. It's like this undertow of the South Node that can feel so real, so just like legit, right? And we can just get lost in it, and it's very, very easy. It's very sneaky. We always do the sneaky South Node that can just really have us, just going back into, taking 10 steps back, which sometimes is okay. Like, it's okay.
Sometimes it's needed. It's needed.
But there's a lot of unnecessary kind of damage that that we can avoid, right? And keep, like you just described pain, basically.
Pain, exactly. Yeah. And like, I do catch myself in these moments. I've caught myself before saying to my husband in one of my dramatic fits where I'm like, you chose to love a Leo, like this is what you get. And I'm like, and he looks at me and he was like, if I said that to you, what would you say back? And I'm like,
Yeah.
shit, like, yeah, I see it. I see it. Like, I see it. Thank you for the mirror.
You know what? Thank you for saying that too, because I really find the relationships have so much to do with the nodes, and like
Yeah.
regardless of the placement, I feel like, and relationships are, of course, they're a mirror of everything, but like I really feel like the partners and the people that are closest to us are like that's where we'll like see it, and they can really help us see it. Like it reminds me of a very this is such an astrologer moment, but like um one of my exes, like one of my partners that I was with, his south node was Capricorn, north of course being Cancer. And I once like I totally used it to like just put him back in his place. Like he did something that was like extremely Capricorn-y, like totally not considering anybody, like, you know, shadow Capricorn, like just super self, you know, oriented, and like the, you know, the goat on the top of it, like not really nurturing. And I was like, what's your north node again? It was just like, and it was just in like in one word, I was just able to like be like, dude, like what is that? You know, and it's not about the signs. It's totally not. It's just about those patterns and the areas in which we tend to kind of fuck up a little bit over and over, and like not only cause pain on ourselves, but oftentimes to others. Because again, I think the whole message is like, that's not what we're here for, really, you know? So I think it's so funny how good job.
No, I love that because I
Yeah.
call my husband out all the time. He has a Sagittarius South Node, and all the time I'll be like, "You're so righteous," and I'll look at him and be like, "You're such a Sagittarius South Node," and he's like, "Stop it!" And I'm like, "But you are." I'm like, "Okay, dogma." Like, I'll use it all the time.
And it, you know what, I think it, like in a loving way, it's like such a good thing to do for those that we love, just to remind them,
Yeah, and
you
that's
know,
been our
whether you're
big
gonna say it
growth.
astrologically or not, but like we can help each other, like just remember like, hey, you know.
Hey, we're not here for that. Like, I know that's me being like, hey, open your mind. Things aren't black and white. Like, hey, get more curious. I'm always like, maybe there's another viewpoint here we could explore.
Absolutely, I love it, I love it. Help your friends.
Literally be their mirror for them.
Yeah, I love
Okay.
that.
This is amazing.
Mhm.
So, okay, we said everything we want to say about the South now. Do we feel good?
I feel great. I feel like like the most important message, if I could put out there into the world, is like just get to know that placement, explore it, like get your hands on some good books. Like Vika, you mentioned some amazing ones. Um, I think the most important thing with like learning about it is, like you said, staying open, practicing discernment, like find those keywords, you know, like you said, for you, like the radical self-love, like those things that really pop are often the thing you need. And then you don't even need much more, you know. I think past life regressions are so powerful to do with South Node. And I just can't wait to hear, you know, like more about others' revelations and how they've become like more um like friendly with their friends.
Yes.
But you know, if there's like one question is like, what do I want to take with me? Like what is the gift that I
Mhm.
want to bring? I think that's like a beautiful thing to like sit with. And again, this can take ages.
Yeah, it could take
Take
it could take the whole life, the
day.
whole
Yeah.
life. Like you could be on your deathbed being like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there it is." But I love that, giving like one prompt of a question around
Yeah.
like, yeah, what is the gift of your South Node for everyone listening? What's your gift? Like,
What is
and
it?
you might not know it yet. You might not have that information downloaded, processed, acknowledged yet, and that's okay. But like, listen with it, sit with it,
Yeah.
feel it. Yeah.
I love it.
Okay. This has been so good.
Yeah, so like Vika mentioned, we're gonna have a sister episode, channeling that Gemini energy together, that Mars Gemini energy. And in that one, we're gonna share kind of like the part two of this, like how our South Node journeys and experience and awareness has worked together with the North Node. Like for me, I really anchored more into my North to kind of get out of that cycle. And I can't wait, because that to me, that's like my favorite thing, the North Node. And just head over to my podcast. You'll be able to listen to part two of this there. And Vika, what's your North Node? I mean, we spoke about it a lot, but if you just want to mention it one more time.
Yeah, North Node Aquarius in the fifth house.
Yes. So I can't wait to dive into that. And for me, it's the Taurus in the 11th, which I just honestly, sometimes I'm like, I want my entire work to just be around Taurus North Node people.
I get it.
And then like, yeah, maybe that is part of it, but can't wait to share that.
Yeah. So, okay, guys, go listen to the second episode if you want that missing link to I'm mixing metaphors here. I was going to say the missing link to the pizza pie, like the other piece of the pie. Go listen to it over there, and you'll have that other half of the conversation,
which is to me the whole point.
Yeah, it's
right?
both. It's the polarity.
Yeah. And so it's like sometimes you might find, like, you know how, like, what was that funny thing? I think I don't know, it was one of the, like, maybe Austin Powers, it was like the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah,
right? So
I don't know what that's from, but my stepdad's always says it.
I say it all the time because, like, I feel like sometimes it's just a matter of shifting. Like maybe you're living with the emphasis on the South Node, but we just want to simply shift it, tip it towards North. And that in and of itself it will just naturally balance out and like heal a lot of the South Node stuff, because you can't really be living too much in the South if you are focusing on the North.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And then just taking that mastery and like finagling it in. I love that. Okay. Daphna, thank you so much for this.
Thank you for having me on and sharing so much about your story. I love it.
Ditto. And I'll put in the show notes, guys, everything you need. So I'll link that sister podcast and any information you might need to find Daphna, find her work if you haven't already. And you know what? I'll throw in our first episode together too, so you can kind of understand what's Daphna all about. You guys know me, so discover her magic too. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will connect in on the next episode. So guys, we have a really exciting announcement / surprise that we have been gestating and I guess sitting on an egg for a while now, that Daphna and I are going to be offering a beautiful program in Pisces season, where you'll get the opportunity to work with us one-on-one in a very intimate and juicy container. Daphna, do you want to share more about it?
Yes. Yeah. So like if you were sitting there listening to these episodes and feeling like that inner just knowing, right, that like it's time for you to really understand your South Node more and make peace with it, and also lean deeper into your North Node, then this is for you. That's literally who it's for. And it's going to be so fun because we're sharing, right? So Vika's going to take the lead with South Node, and I'm going to take the lead on the North Node. And yet we'll both be holding the space and sharing and, facilitating this amazing transformation and awakening for your specific code. So we're purposefully going to keep it small and intimate for that reason. And like Vika said, it's going to be this Pisces season. So what we did was we went ahead and created a little wait list. so that you can sign up and let us know that you're interested and that this is something that is speaking to you, so that you'll be the first to get the details. We have special pricing. We want to make it as accessible as possible. So go ahead and drop your name and email in there if this is something that you would love to learn more about and take part in with us.
Yeah, and this is going to be such a juicy discovery into well, I think you can see at this point for both of us has been a life-changing discovery in our astrology. And I think we can both confidently say one of the most impactful shifts either of us have ever made in aligning ourselves to our true essence.
Totally. And even just since recording the other day, like I was really reflecting and I was like, wow, like what would I do without this? And I'm so grateful to have it because like we were saying, there's so many moments in life where you just don't know, and the nodes are really there to help us always come back on track and know that we're moving forward in the direction that we're meant to. So
Yeah,
I
100%.
can't wait. I can't wait to see who comes in
Yeah.
and we are, I don't know if you want to mention that we are specifically doing Canadian.
Yes, it will be in Canadian dollars.
We want to keep it real and we want to make sure that, it's there and available to you because we so deeply believe in this work and can't wait to like make this magic together and explore past, present, future. Do we want to say the name?
We can say the name, absolutely.
So it's called The Gift. And that came through strong because it's like you are a gift, right? So we're each a gift to the world. And I always like to share that little story around how I was dancing around the fire one summer at the Women's Herbal Conference, and that message just came through so clear. And I knew it was like from the goddess. And she was like, your gifts are not yours to hide from the world. And that's what this is about. I feel like you are the gift, past, present, future, the present, right? We want to bring it all into the now and give you those tools to, again, like really hold yourself and support yourself in your evolution together. Like, what could be more fun?
Yeah.
So I'm so
Yeah.
excited to
I
do it
love
with
this. It's going to be really juicy. It's going to be a 6-week container with us. Like we said, very intimate, not a one-to-one, but you will get lots of that intimate, almost one-to-one feeling in the process because we will be very focused on your particular codes and how the evolution of your soul is, happening here on earth, and really, really realigning you guys into your true north, or that shining star, as I call it, and tapping into your sacred magic through the mastery and, that future point. So we're going to have a few payment plans available. Like we said, we're making it in Canadian dollars because we understand, especially here in Canada, how hard it is. That US currency exchange is absolutely astronomical. So for my Canadians out there, I promise this is not going to be in US dollars. For my US people out there, a little bonus for you because that's a little bit of a shift, but we're going to make this super accessible for you guys to join in and be able to do this work with us in the capacity that you need at this moment. So if you want to get in and, get on that wait list, we are, like I said, taking a limited amount of people because we do not want to overfill this container. We want to overfill it with not too many people. So if you want to get on that wait list, it's going to be in the show notes, whether you're on the podcast or you're watching on YouTube, so you can drop your name in there, and it's going to be first come, first serve, early bird pricing, all that good stuff. So Daphna, is there anything I missed in there?
No, you nailed it. Got
Okay.
it. I'm so excited to just be leading with you and really just in that circle, right? Like it's just about holding the space to allow for each sister who enters in with us to, find their own interpretation, right, of their north node and giving, whatever we can to facilitate that, but each one will have their own channeled experience, and I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Ditto. It's going to be beautiful. So thank you, my loves, and we will see you inside the gift.
Yes.